study on the feasibility of collecting vehicle miles traveled fees. Let me be clear, this bill is looking for honest answers. It's not seeking a particular outcome. It simply asks that the federal government take an in-depth look at how the vehicle miles traveled model would be practically applied. Because as we're finding out in California, the gas tax is not as effective as it used to be. As cars use less fuel to travel the same distance, it means we have less money to fix the same amount of wear and tear. With electric vehicles, there will be no gas tax at all. So I think it's important to gather that information now so that we can make informed decisions in the future. Thank you. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support?
Kevin Cook, representing Sierra Club, California, and we're just in support of this bill.
Witnesses in opposition? There any? Oh, there's a man waving his hands coming forward. Mr. Ackerman, do you know?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Ackerman, representing Associated General Contractors, in support. It's all about money. Thank you.
That's a key supporter right there. If you get the dirt.
Yes, he is.
Any comments or questions from committee members? Senator Huff?
Yeah, I'll just say that it's nice to have more fuel-efficient vehicles, but the downside is we have less money for our infrastructure. And anything we can do to help figure out a way to equitably collect the money necessary to do that. I'm not a fan of raising taxes, but we do have to figure out how to do it in light of the technology. And we're going to be getting, all electric cars pretty soon, so they won't get anything at the pump. So something like this is, I think we have to at least know what our options are to figure out how to pay for that. So I will be supporting your bill today.
Thank you,
Happy
Mr.
to
Huff.
make that motion.
All right. Any closing comments? I did want to comment on the excellent staff work. Staff's apparently improved since I was in the Assembly Transportation Committee.
I do have excellent staff. Yes, I do. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay. We'll take it up when we get a quorum.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Senator Runner?
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. We're all fed and now able to do our work. Senate Bill 660 allows any housing authority that distributes federal Section 8 housing vouchers to make compliance with California's compulsory education law a condition of eligibility. Specifically, the bill authorizes the denial of a Section 8 housing voucher to a parent or guardian of an elementary school student who is a chronic truant if the parent or guardian has been convicted of a crime relating to the pupil's absence from school and the truancy persists following the criminal conviction. Federal law provides Section 8 vouchers will be mandatorily denied or terminated by a public housing authority based upon certain violent criminal conduct or drug crimes under a one-strike policy, which really was established by President Clinton. That same federal law gives public housing authorities the discretion to deny or terminate Section 8 housing for any criminal activity that would threaten the health, safety, or right to peaceful enjoyment of the premises by other residents. I believe that holding a child out of school, especially during the elementary school years, threatens the health and safety of the child and the peaceful enjoyment of neighboring residents. I'm not alone in this. Numerous state and federal studies have established a strong link between truancy and juvenile gang violence and activity and drug use. In response to the Housing Authority in Chattanooga, Tennessee, adopted a policy in 2003 consistent with SB 660, and other housing authorities, including those in Norwalk, Connecticut, and Sarasota, Florida, have proposed similar policies. Additionally, last year, Attorney General Kamala Harris documented the threat posed by truancy in a Pay Attention Now or Pay the Price Later. Harris, then San Francisco District Attorney, highlighted some very disturbing truancy facts. 44% of San Francisco's 5,500 chronic truants were in elementary school. Most truants eventually drop out of high school. 75% of prison inmates are high school dropouts. And in San Francisco, 94% of homicide victims are high school dropouts. Consequences of truancy are staggering, And for this reason, A.G. Harris prosecuted parents of chronic truants in a specialized truancy court. Sacramento's DA Jan Scully and other district attorneys have similar programs. SB 660 is designed to help compel parents of chronic truants to comply with the law. And while denial of the vouchers is the last resort, the continued use of public funds to assist a parent who fails to send their children to school, even after a criminal conviction, makes the Housing Authority a virtual accessory to the continuing truancy. And unfortunately, there are huge waiting lists of people who cannot get housing who will comply with this law. SB 660 is simple, common sense, and I'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Before we go to any witnesses, we're going to ask the Secretary to call the roll for attendance.
Senators Desaulniers?
Here.
Desaulniers present. Gaines? Here. Gaines present. Harmon? Huff? Here. Huff present. Kehoe? Lowenthal? Here. Lowenthal present. Pavley? Pavley present. Rubio? Simidian? Here. Simidian present.
Okay, we've established a quorum. Any witnesses in support of Senator Runner's bill? Anyone in opposition? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Ellen Shea. I'm the manager of the California Association of Housing Authorities. We represent about 65 public housing authorities around the state, including the Los Angeles Community Development Commission, which is the housing authority in the Antelope Valley area, Senator Runner's district. We are opposed to this bill for the reasons that we set forth in our letter, and the opposition is twofold. Number one, it really is not permissible under the HUD guidelines for what can and cannot be included in a HUD contract, and we have provided those regulations, housing choice voucher regulations, to the office. Family obligations are listed in, there is a citation, and school attendance of minors is not a family obligation in the housing choice voucher regulations, and it cannot be included in the lease that would result in the denial of a voucher if this bill were to pass. In addition, as you all know, public housing authorities and other public agencies are all really reeling under continued cuts at the federal level. The administrative funds that are used to operate the Section Choice Housing Voucher Program and other public housing activities has been cut in last year and is proposed to be cut yet again. We don't really have the resources to administer the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program as it is, and asking our staff to enforce school attendance as part of their duties as managers of a affordable housing program really goes beyond the ability and the knowledge and the skills of the managers of this affordable housing program.
Thank you.
Christine Menahan, Western Center on Law and Poverty. We too oppose SB 660. First and foremost, because the federal government, HUD, does preempt. We agree with Mary Ellen's analysis of whether or not you can write additional criteria through the state legislature into the criteria for renting. At least two other states have attempted to add additional requirements, and in both cases, they were struck down by the court. The HUD's general counsel has also said that HUD is the only body that can add circumstances. All of the criteria are related to being income eligible and following the rules that lead to the quiet enjoyment of others. We do not see this as good policy, and we also see it as policy the state is not permitted to adopt.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else in opposition? Senator Runner, would you like to address the points that the
yes, actually, Charlie in my office is going to address the legal aspect of that. I do think it's a gray area. I think the health and safety of the children, we want to break that chain, and really denying children their future there in that situation. And it's only if they're convicted of truancy. So it's not, hopefully, a lot of people in that situation. But there are tons of people out there on waiting lists, and we know that, especially in LA County. And this is just one way we can assure our kids are educated. Charlie Fennessy from my office.
Mr. Chairman, members, the issue of the denial of the voucher based upon express conduct within the agreement might potentially preclude things other than what HUD has enumerated. But HUD has also granted the housing authorities the capacity to make discretionary determinations based on criminal conduct. And specifically, it enumerates other criminal activity which may threaten the health, safety, or right of peaceful enjoyment of the premises by other residents or persons residing in the immediate vicinity. I don't think that there's any case that's directly on point which says that the legislature may not conclude that keeping a child out of school jeopardizes their health or safety. And there's a mountain of evidence that it does, including that which was compiled by A.G. Harris last year. And there have been studies, both by universities in California and elsewhere, that the prospects for the child who's kept out of school are grim. So here, the threshold determination is whether or not this committee thinks that keeping a child out of school jeopardizes their health and safety and may have a negative impact on the rest of the community. If so, then the determination is properly made here. And it's a permissive post-conviction remedy. It says may, no housing authority would be compelled to do anything. But it would be an opportunity to force compliance in a circumstance where the parent who has not been responsive up to that point might see alternatives that are not to their liking. So in the Chattanooga case, where this type of arrangement was imposed in 2003, they haven't actually evicted anyone, but they've gotten better compliance.
So you could already make that argument, and other jurisdictions have.
Well,
under the current
I think
statute, but
the
the threshold would be health, safety, and the peaceful enjoyment of others.
Right, but that is a generalized statement. Obviously, there's lack of clarification as to what that means. Otherwise, we wouldn't have witnesses in opposition. I'm sure most of the members of the committee are comfortable reading federal statutes, and it says what it says.
Right.
So I don't think that there's any prohibition, notwithstanding the objections of opponents.
But somebody could bring that argument to
They
court of law
could,
anyways.
but a statute of this type would clarify it.
Not if it's overturned. Okay.
Okay.
Respond to one of the concerns, having been on a housing authority and having issues around, and this is for you, Senator Runner, about oversight, being a supporter of the program, but also being sensitive to other people in the community, and actually having had several lawsuits in the city of Antioch where there were issues between the county as the housing authority and the city. I thought it was partially our fault as the housing authority in this instance that we weren't enforcing the laws well enough. But part of that was, as one of the witnesses said, there wasn't enough revenue in many instances to actually do the job.
To do the
respond to that, right?
Right. And I think in my particular area and the cities that wanted this opportunity feel the same way. So they've actually hired their own Section 8 personnel to help with the enforcement in our particular community in the Antelope Valley. So with that, it helps at least that portion of it and takes that away actually from the housing authority. And there is a movement in my district to actually become their own housing authority, and that takes a long time and a lot of work to make that happen. But we are so separate from the LA city with a huge mountain range in between. We have our own valley, so, and it's more affordable, and we end up with a lot more Section 8 housing up in that area.
And how do they pay for those extra enforcement people?
Out of city funds.
Wow, general fund money. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Senator Gaines?
I'm still not clear. I believe it was Christine, your comment in terms of why this is bad policy. from philosophically, why would we not hold parents accountable for making sure that their children are going to school? That seems like so clear in my mind as to, from a very logical accountability perspective, that it's beyond me in terms of why there would be opposition to this.
Senator, I think the way Western Center on Law and Poverty and the other legal aid programs look at it is that there is a truancy law, there are penalties, there are determinations. Those penalties can be very stiff for the very low-income families that are living in the housing. That's the more appropriate place to do it. But it is a very harsh consequence if you had a family of 4 or 5 living in a unit and one of the children failed to go to school, not always with the parents' knowledge, as we all know, but truly it has reached the higher level of truancy behavior. We think that it's appropriate to go into the juvenile law and the truancy sections, then to take all of those people that were living in that unit and remove all of them. And then secondly, because HUD looks at the criteria for the housing instead of going beyond it to ensure other kinds of behavior, they look at it exclusively as the family income eligible and is the family following all the criteria in the contract with the local housing authority in terms of their tenancy behavior. It's not based on other kinds of achievements. And I can think of, certainly we use them with our children. Do this, you won't get that. But I think this is a far more complicated issue in how we can gain compliance with the truancy laws.
I guess my concern is that society will pay for those costs one way or another. So if we're not putting certain guidelines in place to make sure that children, especially in low income, are attending school, then we will pay for that cost through incarceration, ultimately at a much greater cost to society. So it seems to me that that you ought to be supporting this. I'm still, it seems to me that the responsibility ought to go back to the parent, and the parent ought to be watching that child ought to be in school, and if the parent's having problems with that, then there ought to be some assistance in making sure that child is going to school. But if there's a lack of parenting going on for that child, then I'm not quite sure. What are the messages that we're sending to folks that are living in that housing facility?
And I would add only that there's a flip side to that. If those children, that family, is evicted from the housing, in almost all cases, because they're extremely low-income people, they'll be on the streets. We haven't helped the child by putting them in a situation where they no longer, in most cases, can be in school. And where you're already seeing a tendency towards truancy or failure to learn in a way that's going to make you a productive citizen for yourself and greater society, if they're identified, I think that's the point at which we would want to bring a program to bear on it so that we don't lose those who have already self-identified as problems.
And what I would try to do is engage nonprofits, faith-based community to walk alongside those families and help them out. We have a program in Sacramento County that I support called Shoulder to Shoulder, and it identifies at-risk kids where the fathers are just completely absent from these children's lives. And they identify them, they have a mentor, and we're seeing their GPAs go up dramatically. I liken this example to that. And again, I'm not always looking for government to step in and have all the answers, but it seems to me we could work within our communities. I think that's what Senator Runner is attempting to do here, is to provide some accountability And it sounds like resources are being provided at the local level to try to help in those situations. So thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Senator Gaines. Senator Keogh.
Thank you, Senator Runner. I just, I was a little bit late, and I don't know if you already went over it, but in the analysis, items 2 and items 3 have some bold type there about, what could be considered problems with the bill. The committee might wish to consider the wisdom of enacting a state law in apparent violation of federal regulations, and then also whether it's appropriate to punish the entire family, so to speak, for the one child that is a student.
Right. We did talk about being a gray area, and there is actually a city and a state who've done that in Tennessee already and have these. And again, it's kind of that threaten the health, safety, or right to peaceful enjoyment of the premises by other residents. Could you include that being truant children because you're really, their health and safety is an issue, and we're just talking about K through 8 students, elementary students. We're not talking about high school. And to me, it's just another deterrent to help make sure that our students are having to go to school if you fit in this particular program.
Yeah.
And, to me, that their health and safety is at risk there if they're not.
Is this statewide or just for your county?
No, it was statewide.
Okay. I just, in looking it over, I just can't get to a place where kicking the whole family out of public assistance housing is going to benefit anybody.
Right.
Seems so harsh.
Right. It is harsh, but also those students, again, I had some statistics there from Attorney General Kamala Harris, who did that, where those students end up if they're truant in those younger grades is they tend to, and I forget what the numbers are, drop out of high school, and those are the ones.
Yeah, I don't think they're off to a good start.
No.
Well, why take all the little brothers and sisters and fast track them to failure also? Because if they're living out of their cars, certainly I can't imagine their school attendance going up or their education being a richer experience.
Well, certainly I'd hope they would then learn to comply with the rules and get their K to 8th grade students to school. And it's only if they're convicted. So we're talking, 10% of the school year missed. We're not talking about 1 or 2 days missing school. So
I can't support it today. I just feel like we're piling it on to the poorest families in the state. I wish their children were going to school. They should be obeying the truancy laws. We have police officers in the schools and administrators that are supposed to deal with this, but treating the entire family, I can't do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Comments or questions? Senator Renner, would you like to close?
Just appreciate an aye vote. I think I've answered all the questions you may have.
Was there
Thank
a motion? So it's motion by Senator Gaines. Well, I appreciate the sentiment you bring it. I mean, who's for truancy? Mm-hmm. But given the comments, and particularly a belief that there's already an ability for a housing authority to sanction people who aren't properly behaving in the community, and there are laws against truancy, I can't support your bill either. And the fact that we might pass another statute that would be litigated, that would cost valuable funds to defend, that's one more reason why I can't support it. But appreciate Senator Gaines' comments and the specificity to a non-government agency that's actually doing good work. Mm-hmm. If we had more of those, we probably wouldn't need things like this. With that, I will ask Secretary to call the roll. Motion is by Senator Gaines to do pass. Recommendation is no.
Senators Desaulniers?
No.
Desaulniers, no. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Huff? Huff, aye. Kehoe?
No.
Kehoe, no. Lowenthal?
No.
Lowenthal, no. Pavley? Rubio? Rubio, no. Semidian. So you've got 3 to 4.
Vote right now is 3 to 4. We'll leave it on call. Thank you, Senator Renner.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to the witnesses. Senator Hernandez. is a key piece of legislation.
And from a key legislator.
Right, with key witnesses. Yes. Time's up, really. Time's up on bad puns. Go ahead, Senator Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. One thing I will not do is I will not be a stand-up comedian after I leave the legislature.
Promises.
What options are there?
If you lose your sense of humor, you should get it back right away.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anyway, back in 2006, SB 1542 was signed into law and required automobile manufacturers to provide encrypted key code information to locksmiths that would allow them to duplicate lost keys. That bill also contained an exemption which sunsets in 2013. I believe current law, including the exemption, has been working. The measure before you today simply eliminates that sunset date. In order for a manufacturer to be eligible for this exemption, they have to follow all of the following requirements. They have to operate a telephone or electronic request service for lost or misplaced keys to registered owners of vehicles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have to provide for the production of a replacement key that allows the registered owner of a vehicle to enter, start, and operate the vehicle. And mostly, they must get the key to the owner of the vehicle at a reasonable cost within 1 day of the request. These key codes are also called codes for a reason. They are meant to be secure so that I do not understand the logic of having to provide code information for registered locksmiths if an alternative method exists. As we know, the Locksmith Association is opposing this bill because they feel they should have access to the BMW codes. However, even if the locksmiths do get access to this information, there is no guarantee that they will invest the machinery needed to actually produce the replacement key. I could just like to make a comment and kind of elaborate on that. It's my understanding, we can verify this with BMW, that in order to purchase the equipment, it costs $140,000 per piece of equipment. And in the state of California, there's 1,200 keys that are produced per year. If you were to just pencil that out, I can't see the cost return for an entity wanting to purchase this equipment to be able to replace the BMW keys with that. So that's where my other concern is with regard to the locksmiths having the ability to get this equipment as well. BMW has successfully processed in place which car owners can get their keys replaced, and I believe this current system works. With me today is Dave Ackerman, representing BMW, and Tom Beloga, Chief Engineer of BMW, can answer any technical questions about their security system, and members and Chair, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Ackerman, representing BMW. This is what the bill's all about. This is a wireless key fob. You don't need to insert a key in the dash. You just push a button and the car starts. It's an amazing piece of electronics that within it is probably one of the more sophisticated security systems for any vehicle that's made. The codes that go into this are vital. They allow access to the vehicle. They allow the vehicle to be started and the like. And it's, again, a wireless technology to where those codes are random and changed as the vehicle is started. So you're assured safety and security with the vehicle. When the prior legislation was passed, BMW was the only manufacturer, and I stress only manufacturer, that before the bill was even introduced, provided a key replacement program as a result of their high security, to where they maintained the codes themselves. The codes were under basically high lock and key security, and they encoded the key fobs like this one themselves in order to provide replacement keys, if necessary, to the car owners. That situation was acknowledged with the legislation, and BMW was granted what is commonly now called as a carve-out, which allowed them to continue to provide their replacement key program while they investigated and looked at complying with the legislation. I think the analysis, the bill points this out. Tom Beloga with BMW BMW, who is here with me, will explain what they went through with that process and why that resulted in the legislation before you that requests a removal of the sunset so that BMW can continue to replace any lost keys within a 24-hour period of time to the owner. And by the way, I might note, in the legislation that was passed earlier, when BMW got the so-called carve-out, or whatever you want to call it, that was a requirement that they provide those keys within 24 hours. They were the only, and still remain the only, auto manufacturer that is required to provide a replacement key within a specified time frame. And that still applies today, and BMW says they will still adhere to that with the passage of this legislation. So with BMW, we ask for your aye vote. I'd like to introduce Tom Beloga, who is chief engineer with BMW, who can explain a little bit about the complexity of the security system and why we've taken this route.
Mr. Chairman and Senators, my name is Tom Beloga. I'm Vice President of Engineering for BMW in U.S. A vote of yes for this bill will allow us, BMW, to keep doing what we have been doing. That is, to keep investing in more sophisticated security systems, keep ahead of the professional thieves, and also allow us to keep delivering 24/7 keys to our validated owners. The history of BMW's concern about security for automobiles goes back to the 90s, when we were very strongly ridiculed as a company for high thefts. The initials BMW, which are Bavarian Motor Works, were sometimes called break my window, break my windshield, because our cars were so often the target of professional thieves and amateur thieves as well. And the company embarked on a very intense program to invest the resources into updating our security systems in our vehicles, and we've been very successful over the years in reducing theft to the point where we are absolute technology leaders in anti-theft devices in the vehicle, and we have evidence to show good results for low theft rates, or the lowest theft rates for any competitor car. This success has been brought about based on our program to keep ahead of the thieves, to keep investing in higher technology to thwart the professional thieves, and also a key element to the program is to reduce the possibility of this technology that we develop from getting in the hands of the professionals who will reverse engineer a workaround to the system. And that's really the core issue. What we bring before you is we would like to continue as BMW to do what we've been doing in reducing thefts continuously and keep this technology out of the hands of anyone that would threaten the property of our owners. In terms of what will happen if a yes vote is received on this bill, we will continue to do what we've been doing, lowering thefts, providing satisfaction for our owners. We've been doing that over the years. We have an outstanding success rate of delivery of keys within the 24/7 period. We have a special program set up where we have a person on staff 24 hours a day, including weekends, on call. So if a call comes in, they can go in and have a key programmed and delivered. So this success will continue with a yes. With this bill defeated, a no vote will mean that we'll continue to deliver the keys 24/7. We will have to invest an enormous amount of money. Our experts estimate about $2 million in isolation systems to be able to deliver these secure coding systems outside of our secure environment. And the worst part is our customers, we believe, will be at more risk of having their car stolen because the technology that we would have to make available to into the hands of the public will eventually get into the hands of those who will reverse engineer the systems and be able to make keys when they're not the legitimate owner. So those are our concerns, and we ask that you please allow us to continue to do what we've been doing.
Thank you. Mr. Ackerman, did you want to?
One final comment. The opposition, AAA, will claim and point out that their objective on emergency road service is to have a rather rapid key replacement and have locksmiths who you call up a locksmith and they'll be able to replace the keys. I did that. I basically feigned losing my keys and said, how easy is it to get a replacement? I didn't call AAA, but I called locksmiths who in the Sacramento area advertised that they could provide access to vehicles. I've got to admit that it wasn't a BMW that I was talking about because I'm an Infiniti owner. We represent Nissan.
I would have thought it was a Maserati.
It was a Maserati. That's my wife's car, Mr. Chair. But so I told them I have an Infiniti FX. And it's a wireless key system, and I've lost my keys. Can you replace that key for me? We called 10 locksmiths in the Sacramento area. Every one of the 10 said that they were incapable of meeting my request or dealing with it and referred me to the Infiniti dealership to see if they could handle it. And I said, well, there's state law that requires you to have the key codes. They said, well, that's fine, but we chose not to invest in the equipment to do that. Apparently, they were not AAA contracted locksmiths, but if you just call a locksmith in the phone book, try it yourself and see what the response is. Mine was batting 0 for 10 on having them help me replace my keys.
So let me get this straight. Infiniti is ignoring the law?
No, Infiniti does provide the key codes. It's just the locksmiths I called weren't purchasing the decoding equipment or encoding equipment to provide the replacement key. They said, go to Infiniti and ask them and have your car either towed to Infiniti or have Infiniti take care of it through the dealership. So I just wanted to say I happen to be a AAA card holder for 45 years too, but I have Infiniti road service and I also have road service through my insurance carrier. And going those other routes, it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to get a key replacement. BMW can provide that key replacement in a quicker time than I could otherwise with my own vehicle.
Maybe you should have talked to Infiniti's lobbyist. Is it Mr. Urban? Never mind. Any witnesses in opposition?
I had a question of the
sure.
witness.
Senator Harmon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to direct my question to the Vice President of Engineering. You said that you have employees that are available over the weekend and something. Now, if a key is lost by a California resident, where do they call? Are they calling Germany or are they calling New Jersey, or where does that call go into, and how do you respond, for instance, on a weekend, a Saturday or Sunday? I'm assuming people may or may not be there to answer the phone, or if they are, they can't transmit it to wherever. Walk me through how that works.
Sure. They're calling an 800 number, a toll-free number, or 888 number, one of three. That is, we have a dedicated key reordering hotline. We have our normal customer service hotline that's available 24/7. And we have, of course, our main BMW number. So if they call any of those numbers, they will get directed to the person who will handle the call and verify their ownership. And the ownership is verified.
And
yes.
Would that person that answers the phone be in the USA
yes.
or be in Germany? I'm
yes.
worried about
the
time frame. It's nighttime here,
handle,
it's
yes.
different time in Germany.
We handle all of our own customer service in this country 24/7, yes.
Okay.
And so that person then would verify ownership by asking a series of questions through Experian, confirmation of the validity of the ownership, questions and answers that only the legitimate owner would know. And then when validated, then the person on the phone from our end then makes the call to our person who is in charge of cutting or not cutting the key, but necessarily programming it. It might be cut or programmed or both.
Would that be a local BMW dealer?
That would be no, it would not be a dealer. Our dealers do not have any machines that can make that happen. It would be in Sanatobia, Mississippi, or in Pennsylvania, most likely in Mississippi, which is in the center part of the country.
Okay.
It can most quickly respond.
And so the key is made,
right.
even on a Sunday?
Yes.
And then how does the key, I'm calling it a key, it's really a fob.
Fob, correct.
How does that get to the consumer, customer, BMW owner that has lost the key?
The person is asked, when do you need it? Do you need it on Sunday morning? Do you need it? Can it wait until Monday? They're asked about the urgency, and depending on the urgency, it's put on the next FedEx or it's put on an immediate FedEx delivery to that person.
So if it happened on Sunday, would FedEx or whoever
Yes.
pick it up on Sunday?
Yes.
And then they could perhaps get it the next day on
Yes.
Monday?
Yes.
Interesting.
Senator Rubio, did you want to ask a question?
I have a couple of questions. First, I want to commend BMW. You make a very good product. I had the wonderful opportunity of touring one of your facilities in Germany. What I found most striking was how different the cars were in Germany than the ones that exist or are built or specifically made for California. They told me the story about how cup holders came into place, because in the United States we have drive-thrus and people buy and they want cup holders. In Germany that wasn't the case. But be that as it may, the key, or this fob that you make in Mississippi, is it the exact fob that you make in Germany or that you make in Saudi Arabia? I mean, you make fobs all over the world. It's the exact same fob?
It's the same fob that's available as a spare part all over the world, and the process for encoding the fob to work in the vehicle is identical all over the world.
Got it. You were wonderful in putting together the 24/7 so that you can get FedEx to come pick up a package on Sunday and then deliver it. Chevrolet now has an app for iPhones where you can actually unlock your car using an application on an iPhone so that you unlock it immediately. Chevy also participates in the bill that the legislature passed to give the security codes to locksmiths. I need to hear from you as to why Chevy can do it and you cannot.
The proliferation of car thieves seeking to steal BMWs has been and continues to be all over the world to a much greater extent after our cars than most any other car.
Okay, but you're not...
We are at high risk.
If I use that premise then, if I use that line of logic, your automobile is not the automobile which is most stolen in California or the United States.
It is one of the least, yes, because of our security systems.
But before that it wasn't, though. So,
correct.
And those folks gave their code and saw the same reductions. I'm having a hard time understanding your logic as to why you cannot do it, yet Chevy, Toyota, Lexus, Mercedes, everybody else can. Do you have any other basis for not being able to do it other than the propensity for which people would like to steal your car other than some other brand?
Well, we explored the possibility of meeting the requirement, of course, when it would sunset in 2013. And our experts came to the conclusion it would be enormously resource-intensive, costly to do that, and we would be giving up this coding capability to the outside world for them to reverse engineer. I'm sorry, I can't speak to anybody else's motives or lack of motives for protecting the security of the vehicle, but I can tell you that we were the first in the mid-1990s to introduce immobilizers electronically preventing car theft. We were the first. We pioneered it, and the others came after. We were the first for lots of technology with anti-car theft features in the car, and the others come after. I can only hope that it's because we are at the leading edge of technology, and we're most concerned about this problem.
Well, and I will close with this, Mr. Chair. You're not on the leading edge of technology if another automobile maker has already beat you to make an app to where I can do it from my iPhone.
We will have an app in September that will do that.
They already have one, you don't. So that's number one. Number two, while I appreciate the intent of the author, I really do, I need a little more evidence as to why we should make American-made automobile manufacturers front the cost to be on the cutting edge to put an app on an iPhone, and at the same time provide security codes to locksmiths so that the single mom who's got 3 kids who's locked out of her door is double covered. She has the cutting edge technology, and she can pick up the phone and try to find a locksmith so she choose. But she has both readily available to her. I think that in the end of the day, we got to look out for the person who's locked out. And I'm having a very hard time understanding why we would require every other automobile manufacturer to do it and not expect you to front that cost to give that double coverage to the single mom with 3 kids who's locked out as well. And those are just my
If I could just quickly respond that we can remotely unlock the car for the owner, and we can unlock the car when the engine is running as well, which the other competition can't.
True. With all due respect, you have to pay for that, though. It's a program that you have to pay. A person in my office just bought a car, and we talked about this before I walked up here. So if that single mom was trying to cut back and didn't buy that service, she wouldn't be able to do it. So I appreciate that, but that doesn't apply for every single BMW owner throughout the state.
Let's hear from the opposition, and then if you could stay there, gentlemen. I'm sure there'll be more questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Paula Labrie with AAA of Northern California. We are one of the sponsors to the original legislation, and we do oppose SB 750. By way of background, we brought this piece of legislation in 2006 due to numerous complaints by our members, and because we've noticed also that in the motoring public population in general, because of the technology that was being used to make keys, that more and more persons were locked out of not locked out of their cars, but unable to start their engines and get their car moving because their key had either been lost, stolen, damaged, and therefore they could not get their car moving. As a response to that, we brought the legislation and as a result came up with a system whereby, a safe and secure system whereby locksmiths who are pre-screened, pre-identified, and bonded are given access by the manufacturer through a screening process to the codes to let the locksmith duplicate the key in short order. Usually it takes under an hour to do so. That way, the motorist does not have to, one, have their car towed to a dealer and perhaps wait several days in order for a duplicate key to be made and brought to them. So they would have the inconvenience of perhaps renting a vehicle and being without their vehicle for a number of time simply because they couldn't do something as fundamental as starting their car, a piece of property that they own. We believe that the owner should also have access to the codes necessary to make that key to make the car run. It's as simple as that to us. During the legislation, in addition to what we came out with in terms of the system, the safe, secure system, which all manufacturers were buying into, we also carved out a specific exemption for BMW because they said no one else could make the keys except for their manufacturer in Germany, and therefore they had special circumstances. We understood that. We worked to give them an exemption and give them time to come into compliance. The timeline for the legislation to take place was 2008, so all manufacturers had a year and a half from the date the legislation was passed to comply. BMW had an additional 5 years. So they essentially had 6.5 years to come in compliance. In the interim, what we agreed to was to set up a system whereby they would provide a key, and any other manufacturer similarly situated that needed that extra time would provide a key to their customers within, it doesn't say a 24-hour period, but an overnight period. So therefore, if the customer lost their key or needed a new key, they would contact that manufacturer. The manufacturer would then, via FedEx, which could be, if it's a Friday night, may not happen until a few days later, would then get the key to them. But that was meant to be an interim process so that within the 6.5 years, BMW could come on board and provide the services and good consumer service that all of the other manufacturers were either going to comply with in 2008 or comply with shortly thereafter. And so, therefore, we don't see a reason why they shouldn't come into compliance. It's simply just that they don't want to. And for us, as sponsors of this legislation, we just feel that that's not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Chairman and committee, my name is John Brueggemann. I'm past president and still sit on the board of the California Locksmith Association. California Locksmith Association is opposed to this bill. Also here representing the Associated Locksmiths of America. That's the national association that has California members. They're also opposed. I have a lot of information that I'd like to present to you that could take hours because I'm very passionate about my trade. Sir, you're saying no.
No.
But I will yield to.
It depends. If you want the outcome to be different, you can go on for hours. Or
I will yield to your request and say that if there are specific questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them. I have a lot of the answers to your questions. Specifically, I will mention the previous proponents were talking about the 10 calls to Sacramento. I also, too, when this bill came up, made some calls to Sacramento locksmiths, asked for their automotive people. And one of the gentlemen that I spoke to spoke very negatively about the secure data release program that the Midgen bill assisted in establishing. And his complaint was he used to go to all the dealerships and, a little pizza on Friday, maybe a couple of tickets to a ball game. He could get whatever key codes or keys he needed. And this new secure data system has dried up a lot of those back doors for getting keys. So the secure system does work. It's being used throughout the U.S. In addition, this secure system that was set up here for California has also been looked at by the German European market and is currently in the final stages of adoption in Canada. They're going to be using the system that we have here for delivering keys. And I can answer additional questions at the committee's pleasure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mike Knutson on behalf of the Automobile Club of Southern California. I'm going to leave aside the fact that a AAA member had an issue and didn't call AAA and had a negative result. I'm not going to get into that. That
terminate his membership.
Is res ipsa loquitur. I do want to address a couple of issues and maybe emphasize them. The current system is working very well. Senator Rubio is right. 90% of all the manufacturers, as best we can tell, are complying. We think this is an extraordinary step forward. In talking to locksmiths and others that are familiar with this area of the law, they're not knocked out with the argument that BMW is somehow more special or does things differently. Its competitors have many of the same security issues. When this bill was originally brought forward, there were really two major claims against it. One was it's impossible, it won't work. We've debunked that thoroughly. The other one is that it would lead to increased theft. And this bill is about a whole lot of other things, but not theft. All three of the major insurance trade associations supported the original Migden bill. Thefts have not gone up. If anything, in the bill, each manufacturer has the flexibility to provide the kind of security structure that it wants over the key codes. What the committee did hear in testimony from the proponents is that the keys are vital. And that's really where we come down. That was what motivated us to do the bill originally. I was here from the beginning to the end of that process. And the idea that a manufacturer of any kind, regardless of the prestige or whatever, could withhold information from someone that would make it more difficult for them to use their car when they needed it was the thing that we were trying to address. In our view, the whole industry was granted a fair amount of lead time to come into compliance with their requirements. A particular manufacturer was provided an additional 5 years. We felt like that wasn't enough. We were told that the product cycles were 4 to 5 years, and hence that's where that timing came from. So from our perspective, in terms of fairness to the consumer, I think the Senator Rubio was right on about that, and fairness to all of the other folks that have to comply, we think that this isn't an appropriate approach, and we do not believe that a single company should receive special treatment from the state of California in perpetuity. Thank you.
Witnesses in opposition. Senator Harmon had a question or comment?
I wanted to ask a question of the gentleman with the locksmith. Yes, you offered to answer questions. Yes, we heard testimony from the proponents that the machinery that's required to produce and duplicate these fobs costs $145,000. Is that ballpark number that you're familiar with? How much does it cost a locksmith to put this kind of equipment into their business?
The keys that are mechanical, the steel keys.
Yes.
That machine, depending upon who the supplier is, runs anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000, and leasing programs are available for $100 to $200 a month. and they tell you that right up front.
That's to make a metal key.
That's
We're
to make the
talking
metal
about
key.
the computer chip type key.
The computer chip type key, there is currently a that is available on the market. There is a BMW programming device that'll program the BMW keys before 06. That's available for approximately $1,500 for pre-06. Now, after that time, that's where the issues with getting compliance with the key issuance comes into effect. What machines they're using, I don't know. Yes, there are individuals that do work to work around the security systems, but that's primarily not for theft related. It's for consumer and getting the driving public back on the road, because there's such a request that we get as locksmiths and such frustration of not getting a key to, number one, open up the car door or trunk, and number two, to operate. So the systems are out there. The system that he's referring to, sir, I don't know. It's probably a very nice machine, and I would anticipate it because it has to do a lot of volume.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we had a lot of discussion with locksmiths about this bill for obvious reasons. What we were told is that the machine that will do the competitors for this can be used to cut keys for the BMW if they have the appropriate information. And so in some cases, and in many cases, and this idea that every locksmith is going to run out and do it, that's not what you need. You need, you know, enough to get some coverage to achieve the purpose of the bill. And many of them already have that, the ones that are doing the appropriate volume of business. And so we've never heard that number. We can't duplicate it when talking to locksmiths that service cars, and you know, that's our understanding, is that it's available, and there may be a machine that's that expensive, but we don't think the ones that people are most likely to buy are that expensive.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, could
Yes,
we have
Senator Hernandez.
BMW maybe answer the question with regard to cost, if they have that available, to be able to counter the argument?
Yes, thank you. The cost of the cutting machine, $30,000. I can't verify what another machine for another competitor's accuracy or tolerances would do, but this is our cost, BMW's cost, from the supplier that we pay to develop the machine. There are 3 coding towers that are necessary. These are to do the electronics. Has nothing to do with volume. It has to do with accuracy and integrity. $30,000 for one, $40,000 and $30,000. So right there is $100,000 for these machines. This is our cost. This is what we pay for these machines when we make them available in our facilities worldwide. And then $15,000, our new 3 Series will have an updated, a more secure system. And so the module for that is going to cost us, BMW, another $15,000. So these are our costs. These are not theoretical. And these would be at least the cost or more of what a locksmith would have to pay in order to get a machine that works.
One follow-up question for the opponents. Can these fobs be replaced roadside? Is there a service out there that, you know, if my wife loses the key to her BMW, can she call someone to come out on the side of the freeway or wherever and replace the key? Or is there, you mentioned there, everyone won't have one of these, but there'll be enough for coverage. Is that what the situation is, Mr. Knudsen?
Well, locksmiths are going to do what locksmiths are going to do, and we actually did some research, and for about $7,500 you can find a machine that claims to be able to cut keys for all of the high-end manufacturers. But the point is in Modoc County,
and can do it at roadside.
Well, that's the whole point of this, is that if you have the codes and those individuals that do business in particular models will carry the fobs, and once you have them, then you can do that if you have the right machinery. That's correct.
Okay. Might I add, Mr. Harmon, and also the likely scenarios are going to be where the keys are lost or stolen, maybe where you're at the ballpark or something like that, so you may be in a parking lot. If it were you or your wife, their system requires that the locksmith do a check. There is specific information that they have to look for to verify that you're a registered owner or family member, and then once they do get those codes, they are also required to destroy them so that that information is not just floating out there.
We're slowly but surely finding out what everyone's wife drives. Senator Gaines and then Senator Keogh. What does your wife drive?
A state car.
Yeah, no.
Not for long.
But, yeah, actually, just focusing
Not if it's a BMW.
on this issue, I've got some concerns about the information and having the concentration of the information. Here we have an exception with BMW, but let's say that this legislation is unsuccessful and all the data is kept through AAA, and you have a breach of the data. How do you address that?
I'm happy to address that. The original legislation addressed that pretty clearly. First of all, AAA never possesses the data. In fact, it was offered to us, and we declined. We didn't want it. The way it works is a locksmith arrives, they verify that it's the registered owner of the car, they contact the manufacturer through the pre-agreed system for verifying themselves as the person that they are. They will get a code. That's actually what's superior about this. The consumer is entitled to that code rather than have them hand it to you at the beginning when you buy the car and have it kind of out there. Is not a good way to do it. They're entitled to that code. You give it to the locksmith. They use it to help you, and they destroy it. The thing requires them to destroy it and not keep it. And so there's not an accumulation of data, and it wouldn't be particularly useful anyway at that point.
Yes.
Senator, as a locksmith, we go through a computer portal to get pre-approved, and then from there, through a computer portal, that is the one that does the background checks and the security checks to say that I am registered and pre-cleared. Then I go to the individual manufacturer and I contact through computer terminals that individual manufacturer, and I communicate with that manufacturer directly. Sometimes it takes two communications because the auto manufacturer has a two-step process to make a key. So the data is being held at the manufacturer's database and doesn't go out.
Chevrolet has an OnStar program. So that's been in existence for a long time. You can call the 800 number and they'll pop the locks on it. So I guess the latest technology is now an application. Is there a security threat through an application in terms of that data being stolen during its transmission that could jeopardize theft of vehicles?
Senator, I can say that on YouTube there was a lot of tapes where people could supposedly make a telephone call, and if a person at the other end of the line did a click with the key fob into the telephone and you held it up to the... No, that didn't work, sir. With the application, it'll be... The secure system is going to be as secure as it's going to be. So the application, I don't think, will be any different. Just remember that if the transponder chip inside the key, or whatever chip you want to call it, is talking to the car, just like the remote is talking to the car, the system that we have established is a locksmith with proper credentials and authorities and given the authorizing codes can make a chip that will also talk to the car. The dealership does it. The locksmiths would like to have the ability to get the customer back on the road and driving again.
Okay. From BMW, do you see that as a security threat in terms of the use of an application to transfer data?
The security has to be enhanced so that that can happen, and that depends on the depth and the breadth of the firewalls that are put in place. And we're very, very conscious of the necessity to do that. Maybe that's why it takes us longer than someone else that has an application, because we're more diligent about what we do to protect our customers' property. I can't speak to what competitors do, but we certainly are very diligent, and we won't release something like that unless we are absolutely sure that the security of the owner's property is secured.
Okay, and then how about on the theft rates themselves? How do your theft rates compare with the industry?
We are
historically.
We are, in the last couple of years, the lowest or one of the lowest in the whole industry. Certainly with our competitors, we're the lowest. In the state of California, we have data to show you that we are the lowest. Nationally, the latest data available is up to 2008, and we are the lowest among our peers. So our systems are working, and we want to continue that. And we feel that releasing the data would be a threat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just I've listened to a lot of the discussion, and generally I always pay careful attention to AAA because you're kind of the consumer voice. I think you stick up for the average driver in the midst of, 18-wheelers and all that sort of thing. So I appreciate your input. But in listening to Senator Hernandez and looking at the bill, bottom line for me is BMW appears to have a program that's working for them and their customers, that's highly secure, that's resulted in lower thefts and complaints, if I'm reading this material right. They have proprietary technology, and, I kind of on the leave well enough alone posture this afternoon, so I'd like to move the bill whenever the chairman's ready. For all those reasons.
Just a follow-up to that, how many complaints do you get from customers who complain that they can't get roadside assistance to start their car right away?
Up till April 1st of this year, we delivered about 6,200 keys. Excuse me, and we had one complaint from an owner who was in Europe, and his wife could not verify the authenticity.
So that's worldwide?
No, for California.
California? Okay.
Yes.
And that's for the period of time, what period of time?
Since the beginning of the program,
okay.
Yes.
AAA, do you get any feedback from your clients?
When we talk to our locksmiths, they say that BMW owners whose really only solution to this problem is to be towed somewhere are very unhappy. And many of them aren't aware that there was some kind of an option. If you told them that, hey, your babysitter, your friend down the street that drives a less prestigious car was in and out in 40 minutes and was home, they might have a different perspective.
So that's anecdotal. Do you actually keep records?
We don't track it like that.
Okay, but you do. Yeah, wouldn't they? You would think.
I was driving a $60,000 car and I was mad about it. I'd call, the dealer or somebody.
Well,
$60,000 is one of your cheaper ones, right?
That would be used when Senator Keogh.
That's the man in the street BMW.
30,000.
Mr. Chairman, we have detailed records. We were doing the 24/7 call prior to the enactment of the bill. So we have records that go back prior to that, and every call is annotated as well as the result of it. And the one that Tom mentioned, the car was not registered to the spouse, it was registered to the husband, and she could not identify and prove that she was legally entitled to the vehicle.
This wasn't Senator Harmon, was it? No.
No.
What would the cost be?
Her BMW is so old it doesn't have one of the little fob things.
What would the cost be if this bill failed to replace a key? Would it go up for your customers?
Introducing a middleman would certainly add costs. The way it's handled right now is the key is delivered directly to the consumer. The cost is our normal cost plus the FedEx, which is $7 to $12. Introducing a middleman into the system, that person has to be paid, and unless they're willing to do it for free, and so that would be an additional cost.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we would call it introducing a competitive alternative, and our experience isn't that increases costs.
Is there any place else in the world, or is there another state that requires you to do what the state's asking you to do?
No.
Here? Do you know what percentage of your total worldwide sales are in California as an average?
About a fifth. Oh, sorry, worldwide, did you say?
Yeah. A fifth nationally?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to do that.
So quite a bit.
Yeah, nationally, it's a good chunk.
Are there any other states that are entertaining this kind of legislation?
Others have looked at it and talked about it. Many car companies have taken the California program nationwide, so some of the interest has kind of waned because they're already enjoying the fruits of California's progressive approach.
I would like to just add that a California resident gets the key delivered wherever they are. We have delivered keys to Texas and Maine and everywhere. As long as the California resident has a California address, they have access to this program, so they're not limited to be physically located. So what that means is, with our program, an owner who's a California resident is protected to get that key quickly in the whole United States and Canada. We deliver the keys. As opposed to, if this was passed, then, of course, they would have access only in the state of California.
Can somebody speak to legislative intent, which our analysis talks about? So, and I think AAA mentioned this, that when these discussions happened, and Senator Lowenthal, I think you were the chair then, I don't know if you remember, the intent of the carve-out, the idea that it was to allow you a period of time to come into compliance. So that's sort of,
yes. And
I've been, this is one of those things I think I hear from my colleagues too. We came into this room, a lot of us trying to decide how to vote on this, but the legislative intent would lead me to support AAA if that was the intention when the discussion happened, that you were going to get 5 years to figure out how to come into compliance. Now you're back asking for an indeterminate time.
Right.
Seems like that's different.
Right. The intent was to allow us to continue to do what we were doing, which was to secure the codes, and then the number of years was a compromise in order to say, well, because your system is so complicated, and you want to have secure systems, that it would sunset, and that was the best we could come up with. We have explored what it would take to do that. It would be an enormous investment, as well as what we believe today. As then, it would be losing the integrity for our owners. We have proof now, which we didn't have years ago, of the rapidly dropping theft rates of our cars, that the system is working, and we'd like to preserve that.
Mr. Chair, if I might, no. Our recollection, I was here at when the original legislation was formulated, helped to write it and to get it passed, and clearly the intent there was to give them time to come into compliance. We all knew that this was a problem from the beginning. Manufacturers had been talking on a national scale in terms of what we were going to need to do for consumers in wake of this technology, and they had been trying to come up with some ideas as well. So manufacturers were already talking about this. We knew it was a problem. We understood that the reason why some of these key fobs were being made was because it was helping theft. We didn't deny that. We didn't want to change that. All we wanted to do was come up with a secure system whereby the consumer could have their codes when they needed them, via a registered locksmith to get their car on the road. And it was clearly to allow them time to come into compliance, because they said that they had difficulty coming into compliance. So in good faith, we gave them the compliance, and we gave them an opportunity to comply over 5 years. And I just want to reiterate this magical system that is in place regarding the mailing of the key for 24 hours, and it sounds as if this is something that the BMW came up with on their own, and this is some system that is working, and our customers love it. But this is, in fact, the system that was agreed upon that they would have to do. If they weren't doing the 24-hour system, their customers would be getting towed to the dealer and waiting much longer than 24 hours. The 24 hours came in as a result of the legislation to give them some time and have an alternative, and any other manufacturer that had the problem that they had, and time to come into compliance. So it's not something that they came up with on their own that is something that their consumers are so happy with. Thank you.
Senator Huff, and then Senator Keogh. Did you want to make comment? You're ready to vote.
No, she's ready for no more comments, I think.
You got to wait 24 hours.
Let me say first that I'm a longtime AAA member. I get my insurance through AAA. Having said that, I think I supported the bill last time. It seems like we're beating this thing to death for no apparent reason. You have somebody made the comparison about Chevys versus BMWs. This is not a Chevy. We're talking about BMWs. People expect to pay a lot. You want to change out that tire, it's $500. That's not cheap. The run flat tires. They have the lowest theft rate. They have a business model that says they want to have secure keys. They've set up that to make it happen. It works. And we're sitting here wrangling about why we need to fix this thing that doesn't appear to be broken. Who's being hurt here? Where are the customers crying out that we don't have access to our cars? I would argue that if BMW is not following the market needs, they would not be selling cars. And yet we're selling more percentage-wise in California than our population as far as the BMW sales in the nation. So it seems to me this bill takes care of a problem as part of the first legislation. Their system works. Let's just let them keep doing it. If the customers don't like it, they'll buy a Chevy. And I would move the bill.
Moved by Senator Keogh. That wasn't a question, so we'll take it as a comment from Senator Huff. Any other comments or questions? Senator Hernandez, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for an aye vote, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Okay. All right, we'll ask the Secretary to call the roll.
The motion is do pass. Senators Desaulniers?
No.
Desaulniers, no. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Aye. Huff, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Semidian? It's 4-1.
Okay, that's 4-1. We'll leave that on call momentarily, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And well, we still have Senator Correa's bill, and Senator Correa is not able to be here, so we're going to have staff present that bill. We'll move the consent calendar. We're going to call a roll on the consent calendar.
On the consent calendar, Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Semidian? 5-0.
5-0. Let's see. Do we have a motion on AGR 5? That's number 6. Okay. Senator Huff made that motion. We'll ask the Secretary to call a roll. This is on item number 6.
The motion is to be adopted. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
No.
This is Assemblymember Lowenthal, number 6.
Gaines? No. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Semidian? It's 5-1.
Okay.
4-1.
All right. And we'll hope they'll come back to take a position on Senator Correa's bill. Would you like to present it?
Thank you so much, and thank you again to committee for allowing staff to present. Since the consolidation of a number of transportation agencies in Orange County in 1990, there have been a number of legislative fixes to address the evolving demands of the Orange County Transportation Authority. From Marion Burgess in 1990 with the consolidation, to Senator Harmon with the bill in 2002, then Assemblyman, and then Assemblyman Correa in 2004. The bill before you today addresses the fact that in Orange County there are a number of columns of membership to the authority. There are the 5 supervisors, then there are, by weighted population voting, basically 5 large cities, one within each supervisorial district, and then the one city, one vote membership column. And that's the area that the senator has had concerns expressed to him about, and the one that this bill attempts to address. While the large cities, who are, of course, the biggest contributors of the revenue and generally the largest users, are in that one column, we have found that since at least 2006, that there's pretty much been a lock on that other spot. And that for the last 6 years, several of these supervisorial seats have had the same city, while others have desired to serve. So the senator has introduced this bill in the hopes that this is a vehicle, once again, as in 2004, for bringing the various parties together to say, how do we ensure greater accessibility by all of the member cities that are involved in this decision-making? So the measure seeks to basically ensure broader representation on the board while protecting the interests of the generally large cities. The measure does not force any city to serve if they do not wish to have representation. And furthermore, if the member cities in that supervisorial district have no desire to serve, then that one who was serving can continue to serve uninterrupted. So I do have a witness here today to testify, and I thank you for your time.
Okay. Witnesses in support.
Chris Kahn, representing the City of Irvine. The City is supportive of the bill, and we applaud the author for trying to broaden the representation of the entire county. We look forward to working with him as the bill moves forward.
Thank you, Chris. Any opposition? Do we have any questions or motion? Motion by Senator Kehoe. Would you like to close?
I would ask for your aye vote, respectfully.
Senator Gaines, did you have a comment?
I'm sorry, I've got a question just in terms of, I mean, I'm still unclear. Are there cities that are unrepresented currently on the board?
There are cities and some very significant in population who have not been able to serve due to various alignments. And this goes, from my personal knowledge, when the board was reorganized in 04 and then took effect in 05, as far back as I've been able to go through 06 in the research for the senator, these other cities, 19 of them, 1/3 of the county's population, have not had that opportunity to serve on this authority, sir.
Okay.
And a number of them do. And it has been evolving over the years. I know then Assemblyman Harmon, as I said, carried a bill to expand the representation on OCTA in 02 and joined with then Assemblyman Correa in 04 on a bill affecting OCTA on the representation. So it continues to evolve as the authority deals with the competing demands within the county. And that is the senator's hope for this one. This is the platform for bringing those parties together and continuing that talk.
Okay, of the number, how many cities in the county again? Excuse me.
I'm sorry?
How many cities are in the county?
Oh, gosh. 33?
20 or more.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how many are represented on the OCTA?
I believe the way it's broken down by supervisorial district, there's 5 districts, and there's 1 large city and 1 small city from each district. That's 2 times 5 is 10, plus the 5 supervisors is 15, and then I think there's 2 public members to 17.
And Caltrans, sir.
I think that's the way it works.
That's correct. There are, at least since 06, through 06, a total of 14 cities have had the opportunity to serve on the Transportation Authority since 06. There are 19 others, some very significant populations, too, that have not had that opportunity and who have expressed concerns to Senator Correa that they like that opportunity, so they would like to promote this discussion among all the different parties. And this is how, I don't wish to speak for Senator Harmon, but I know this was all part of that discussion, both 02 and 04, when both he and then Assemblyman Correa introduced varying bills that were similar to encourage this discussion between the parties.
Okay. And I'm still confused as to why we have to make this decision at the state level.
It is in the codes. It's in the statutes.
Okay. SACOG.
So you have to do it here.
For the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, which distributes transportation dollars for the 6-county region that I served on,
right,
we were able to change our voting and our participation, and we dealt with that locally.
Well, that may be something Orange County will look at some point. At this point, we are presented with the facts that is governed by statute in fact, I believe, the Public Utilities Code. So all things have to come through Sacramento, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's a motion. If there are no other comments or questions, I'll ask Secretary.
Well, I do
Senator
have
Harmon.
I have, in the past, Mr. Chairman, members been supportive of some changes in OCTA and the method that they're selected and so forth. But, however, on this bill, I will be voting no. I don't think this is the right thing to do. It's sort of the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. So I'm satisfied with the way OCTA is working right now. I think smaller cities do have an opportunity to participate, and they just need to learn to work within the system. So I will be encouraging my colleagues to vote no on this bill.
Okay. I'll ask the Secretary to call the roll.
The motion is due pass. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. Huff?
No.
Huff, no. Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Pavley? Pavley, aye. Rubio? Semidian? It's 3-3.
3-3. We'll leave it on call.
Thank you.
That's our last item, members, so we're going to go back and open the call. Members who are out there and haven't come, I know the sergeants are calling, so we'd like them to get back here so we can conclude as soon as possible. You want to start with item number 2?
File item number 2, SB 665. Assemblymember or Senator Runner. The motion is due pass. The current vote is 3-4. Chair aye, Vice Chair no.
No, other way around.
I'm sorry, Chair no, Vice Chair aye.
Right.
Senator Pavley? No. Pavley, no. Semidian? So you've got
3-5. We'll leave that on call for Senator Semidian. Yep, you already voted on that one. Item number 3, SB 750, Senator Hernandez.
The motion is due pass. The current vote is 4-1. Chair no, Vice Chair aye. Senators Harmon? Harmon, I. Pavley. Pavley, I. Rubio. Semidian.
Okay, we'll leave that open for Senator Semidian and Senator Rubio. Item number 4, SCR, consent, I should say. Items 4 and 5.
Senators Harmon. Harmon, I. Huff. Huff, I. Pavley. Pavley, I. Semidian.
Okay, we've got item number 6, AGR 5 by Assemblymember Lowenthal.
The motion is to be adopted. The current vote is 4-1. Vice Chair, I. Chair, I. Vice Chair, no. Senator Harmon.
No.
Harmon, no. Huff.
Aye.
Huff, I. Pavley. Pavley, I. Semidian. 6-2.
Okay, that has 6-2. That's sufficient for passage, but we'll leave it on call, and I will wait to see if the absent member is coming back. And for those who have already voted for everything, thank you.
He is presenting a bill somewhat controversial in judiciary as we speak, so he may be a while.
Well, I know he's a man of few words, so I'll enjoy sitting here for several days. Maybe I'll lose my BMW key and call and see if it gets replaced by the time he's done. Thank you all. Yes, we're going to open the roll on item number 1, Senator Correa, SB 437.
The current vote is 3-3. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no.
Chair is aye. I am voting aye.
Lowenthal? Lowenthal, aye.
Chair Emeritus Lowenthal.
So it's 4-3, still on call.
That's 4-3, and it's still on call. All right, we're going to open the rolls, and we'll start with item number 1, SB 437, Senator Correa.
The motion is due pass. The current vote is 4-3. Chair aye, Vice Chair no. Senator Simitian.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. If the measure fails today and is granted reconsideration, when can it next be taken up? Are we up against a deadline?
January.
Can we replace the call on that one for a moment, Mr.
Sure,
Chairman?
be happy to. Take us to item number 2, SB 660, Senator Renner.
The motion is due pass. The current vote is 3-5. Chair no, Vice Chair aye. Senator Simitian.
No.
Simitian, no.
Okay.
So that's 3-6.
That's 3-6. That bill fails. We'll grant reconsideration, or actually it's not necessary. Item number 3.
It is. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just for a 2-year bill. Okay. All right. Reconsideration granted on that item. Item number 3, SB 750, Senator Hernandez.
The motion is due pass. The current vote is 6-1. Chair no, Vice Chair aye. Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. That's out, 7-1.
That hurts.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations. And like I said, if I need a key for my BMW, I fully expect to not be able to get it. But I'll go to AAA. I'll get it in 2 weeks. Let's see. Item number 6, AGR 5, Assemblymember Lowenthal.
The motion is to be adopted. The current vote is 6-2. Chair aye, Vice Chair no. Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. That is out, 7-2.
Okay, that bill is out, 7-2.
On the consent calendar, current vote is 8-0. Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. That
And
is
Mr. Chairman,
out.
if I could ask you for just a moment before we lift
Sure.
the call again
Happy
on
to.
item number 1. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my understanding is on item number 1 is that the author is still in negotiation with some of the local stakeholders. While those negotiations continue, I'm prepared to support the bill moving out of committee with no commitment as to where I may be in future on the bill. But if there is a conversation underway, I'd like to see that conversation continue. And for that reason, when the call is lifted in a moment, I'll be an aye vote in today's committee hearing.
Okay, we'll lift the call.
Motion is due pass. The current vote is 4-3. Chair aye, Vice Chair no. Senator Simitian.
Aye.
Simitian, aye. Bill is out, 5-3.
That bill is out, 5-3. And we're done. We're adjourned. Thank you. My pleasure.